And welcome to the Administration and Operations Committee for March the 17th. Happy St. Paddy's Day to all. I'm going to start off by, first of all, thanking all those that put their name in for the by-election for Ward 5, and to congratulate Councillor-elect Ella Haley, who will soon be joining her ward mate, Councillor Coleman, for Ward 5. Attendance, we've got Councillor McAlpine is online. Councillor Oakley is not with us. The rest of committee is present. Anybody have anything to add to the agenda? Councillor Chambers?
Just a couple road matters at the appropriate time.
Okay. Councillor Miller?
Same.
With road as well? Okay. Okay, no others? Seeing that, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Mayor Bailey, Councillor Miller, questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest, any at this time? Seeing none, please let me know if some come up through the meeting. Delegations, we've got one delegation today, Henry Stolp and Northern Rudder Holdings, Inc. If you want to come on up. Oh, we do have two. My apologies. Yes. You have a presentation, correct, Henry? Okay, if we could just get you, state your name and your address, and you'll have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Members of council, my name is Henry Stolp, and I live at 2 Grand River Street South in Paris, and have been part of this community since 2004 when we bought our first building at 11 Grand River Street. I'd had some difficult times in Toronto and moved to this area in 2004 and wanted to live near the river, so I decided on either downtown Paris or downtown Galt, and it became downtown Paris. And it's been wonderful since that time. So from what I'm talking about today is an important issue to us, and I think to a number of people who live on the east side of Grand River Street North. From a parking perspective, we've been working with staff since early 2022, probably, with respect to doing a parking, dealing with residential parking permits, and so that's why I'm here with you today. It's always been my dream to develop near the river, and we've developed a number of projects on the river. The first two houses I built were on Creedon Street, and initially we had bought a number of properties on Grand River Street North from 1 to 13, and I think Councillor Howes remembers some of the discussions we had about that project as it went through. It was 15 units, which was much difficult to get because of the GRCA, and I think Councillor Howes at one point called it a hospital-like presentation, and we decided to not proceed that way, ended up having meetings on the back deck of our house, and ended up with something which we have today, including a mansard roof. So that's been the evolution. See if I can get this right. In November 21 of 2023, the first time this was dealt with by this committee and then council, it was approved in principle to have residential parking permits within the downtown. In May 21, 2024, it was approved with some added delegations of having spots at both the Cenotaph and at the OPP lot. In February 18th, it was approved again at council with much more criterion, and with 10 spots at 28 Broadway as opposed to the Cenotaph because of the Big Dig. So the Big Dig used the Cenotaph lot as a staging area. And then again, and that was approved by council with the bylaw February 25th, 2025, and implemented by staff in June, July of last year. Let's see if I get this right. These are the spots which we've talked about. Municipal Lot 2 is, well, I think you all know where they are. This is what we're proposing, and it was part of the initial proposal that staff had in May of '24, and again, in some respect, in the February 18th of report at this committee. So the words at that time was, as such, it is recommended that residential permit parking continue in this lot, being the Cenotaph lot, post-construction, and that the 10 spaces at Broadway be eliminated at that time. So far, all that's been taken up is one spot, and if you take a look at it, it's on the OPP lot, and it's taken up by Kathy Bond who's bought one of the units of our project. Hang on. So my requests are the following. Move 10 spaces back to the Cenotaph as per the initial report in May of '24 and again in February 18th, '25. Amend the bylaw to allow a residential landowner like myself to rent the permitted spaces rather than just residents. We have 5 vacant units, and the hardest part for me to sell them is I can't show them where the parking spots are. And right now, they're all designated at OPP lot, which is not very easy to get to. Kathy Bond, who has leased one of the units, says the sidewalk's terrible and it's a long walk. So to bring groceries and stuff like that makes it difficult. Good thing that we have a loading zone, which was organized by operations staff in front of our project. I'm suggesting that the fee structure be changed to $90 per month as opposed to $120 because it seems high, and really only one spot's been taken up since we've started the project. I also expect that because in the report in May of 24, there were 44 spots that didn't have, 44 residences that didn't have parking that's accessible to them. Of that, 33 were on Grand River Street North. Of that 33, I would think at least 20, which would be on the east side of the road or the riverside, would have the most difficulty finding parking spots. And that's really what I'm trying to accommodate. And my last request is that the bylaw, which I'll show you in a minute, is we ask that it be amended and approved by this council on March 24th, because timing is very important to us. If it can't be on March 24th, then it should be April 14th in order for us to accommodate the spring market. And so if you take a look at the changes in the criterion, there's only 2, and they're highlighted in red, where it talks about or ownership, I should say, or residential ownership. And I'm suggesting that also have a permit available for a year. I know the person who bought one of our units travels a lot, so you'll see an empty spot for some parts of it. And what we're suggesting is, as Northern Rudder, is to lease or purchase or rent, not purchase, but rent 5 spots, of which we put black bags over the signs until we actually have a specific homeowner who would use them. And the changes, the conclusion is these would be the changes in the bylaw that we're suggesting. Part of it has to do with changing the lot location, and the second part has to do with ownership, and the third has to do with pricing. So this is why I'm requesting that the bylaw be amended at the next council meeting for us to take advantage of the spring market. I must say that we've worked with staff. We've had discussions with both Adam and Greg. They've been very, very good in working with us to try to get to this point. Adam suggested I make a presentation to council, which is why I'm here today. So I thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to talk to you.
Okay, thank you for that. Questions from committee? Councillor Bell, then Councillor Howes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a question for staff, really. I've gone back to look at the 2024 minutes, and we did indeed say we'd take 10 lots in municipal lot 3, which is the Cenotaph unit.
Yeah.
Clearly things changed because we wanted to use that space for the downtown dig. Is there a reason why we would not revert back to what we had in 2024? And that's a question for Adam, who knows it's coming.
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, I don't believe there's any reason why we would not change direction on that. I think the original intent was to have it in the Cenotaph lot, and when it was deemed necessary to be the staging area for the 2025 phase of the downtown dig, obviously we kind of had to pivot to another lot, but I think there is some intentionality, and there's been some previous agreement that that would be a lot to use and could be changed for this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Howes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. It's a better today. And I really
town. It blends in. Oh, microphone's working now. It blends in beautifully. My question is probably more towards staff also, and that is I've only recently become the council representative on the BIA committee. Am I out of time?
We'll allow an extension.
Well, that's for my time.
Yes.
Oh, good, I
You're
think I
okay.
made it.
You're okay too. Can anyone tell me if the idea of reserving 10 spots in the Cenotaph parking spot was, if there was any discussion about the palatability of that within the BIA at the time?
Adam?
Yes, I know that a couple of staff members, I believe the Director of Economic Development and Tourism and Bylaw Enforcement, did consult with the BIA regarding the development of the permit system. So there is an expectation that that was suitable at the time. Currently, we're actually undertaking a survey of all BIA business and you know, the use of and getting a better sense of how many residences are up there through our construction liaison, who's doing some consultation there. So at the time, it was deemed suitable, yes.
Councillor Howes?
Follow up through the chair, please. So specifically, the idea of reserving 10 spots within the Cenotaph parking lot was deemed suitable by the BIA back in the time.
Through the chair, I'll chime in on that one, but it is my recollection this plan was presented to the previous iteration of the Board of Management, and they liked the plan as a measure to get more people living downtown. So as I recall, there was, you know, the BIA was happy with it. Mind you, it was a different Board of Management.
Okay, thanks for that distinction. And one last follow-up on this is, so you say you're undertaking a kind of some research through the BIA membership, current BIA membership regarding parking needs. What's the timeline on that project?
Through you, Mr. Chair, We're hoping to wrap that up fairly shortly, actually. It started back in January. When we presented the parking supply demand assessment back in December, one of the directions given to staff was to undertake this. So taking a little bit of downtime through the winter months with construction liaisons, go out and, you know, undertake some engagement to get some better understanding of commercial need as we start to develop that sort of parking needs assessment. So we hope to probably have something presented by the end of May or June of this year.
Thanks.
Mayor Bailey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, about parking downtown. Even before Henry came to us about parking, a business right next door to Henry who's been there for 50-plus years, and they live upstairs, are still getting tickets. Last week I was in the front office when the man who owns the Chinese restaurant came in with more tickets. I took them from him. He's lived there and had a business and they don't have any place to park. So I can't imagine us doing anything for Henry until we do something for a man who's run a business, lived upstairs for over 50 years, and we've done nothing for them. So I'm not sure what bylaw wants to say about that. I've asked staff to look at it, and they're still coming in with their tickets. It's not fair, and it's not right. And if we can make that part of this thing with Henry, but you can't just start building condos asking for spots when someone's in front of you by 50 years. We have to address it all at once.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to talk about that for a minute, if I can.
Not really supposed to, Henry.
Okay, sorry.
Any other questions from committee? Okay, online. Okay, how would committee like to proceed? Councillor Bell?
Yeah, I think we should move to receive this, but also ask staff to come back with a recommendation, hopefully next council meeting, Adam? Yeah.
So receive and send to staff for a report for upcoming council meeting?
Yep.
Seconder, Councillor Howes. Questions? Councillor Miller?
Perhaps they could incorporate what Mayor Bailey was talking about, because I think that's a longstanding issue that should be addressed through this. And I do appreciate Henry coming in. I think when Henry speaks, I listen, because he's been part of the community, wants what's best. So I would have been prepared to move them all, but I'm okay with referring it to staff as well.
Adam?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to note too, I mean, as a part of this and a part of the broader structure of the permit system that's been implemented, it was intended to be a one-year pilot. There is intended to be sort of a follow-up report in June or July that outlines the results after 1 year. I think one conclusion would have been we have one permit out right now. It definitely was a matter that because of the timing of the pilot, we couldn't accommodate Mr. Stolp's comments in that review, which is why it's encouraged to come here and speak to committee directly. So I think, you know, we can certainly try to evaluate the other situations, but certainly I just wanted to note that there was an intention to sort of holistically review with, you know, the BIA review, along with any other issues that came up during the one-year pilot, just to see how it was functioning. And obviously, we've heard a couple comments about how it can function better, so.
Okay, appreciate that. Okay, so we've got a motion on the table to receive it, send it to staff for a report, including what the discussions of today. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
Mr. Chairman, can I be a second delegation?
I'm sorry?
Can I be a second delegation?
You're not on the
I know.
list, so I would have to put that to committee. Councillor Chambers?
I think Mr. Stolp just wants to respond to something that was said. Is that, and I don't have a problem with that if he wants to make
It
a
is.
comment.
Second that. Okay. All in favor? Opposed?
I had lunch at Jade's last week and had a long discussion with Lenny, who's the owner. He has two concerns. He is interested in residential parking across the street, so the 10 spots. And I expect after doing a review, you won't find a lot of spots being taken up other than by some people who live on the east side of Grand River. His biggest concern is not having parking in front of the store. And I'm going to be making a presentation on his behalf to the open house on Friday with respect to that. So I think there's a simple change which we can make to accommodate him in front of his business. That would have to make some changes to what's there now. But I think with everything that's going on, I think it would be wise to do that. So you'll see that as a part of my discussion or when I meet with people on the 20th. That's all I really want to say. I don't really want to discuss it. I'm just giving you a heads up.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, we do have a second delegation. Christy, come on up. Again, if we could just get you to state your name and address for the clerk, and you'll have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Speak. Good to see everyone today. My name is Christy Guthrie. I'm the co-founder of Municipal AI, and I'm bringing to you all an opportunity for municipal websites that's building a lot of momentum across Ontario. And I met with Councillor Miller at Roma, and he says, bring this to council and share what you're doing with the rest of the county, and so I'm here today to do that. Has anyone, whether it's on brant.ca or another municipal website, tried to find information and been met with a difficult time? It's a near universal frustration, is that when people go to their city's website, it's hard to find information. And it's not because of your specific website or your comms team, it's because the way in which a municipal website has been structured since websites existed is like a filing cabinet, right? We have a couple of items in the top nav. We have 600-ish pages full of really technical, time-sensitive, detailed information, and we kind of are putting it on the resident to open the file, metaphorically, open the drawer, sort through the files, pull out a page, read it in full, try to make sense of what it means. And until now, that's been the best we have because that's where the technology is. But with AI, and I know everyone's talking about AI right now, there's AI technology that changes this, that offers new opportunities, which is good because the way in which people use the internet is also changing. Like, we are used to these really frictionless digital experiences in the private sector on Netflix and on Amazon and even using Google these days. It's really contextual, and that opportunity now exists for municipal sites because traditional keyword search will never deliver great service to residents. It's just like based on the way traditional keyword search works. You're putting in a couple of keywords, and that search engine is looking through your site and trying to pull up information that has those keywords. So you'll search something, but often people aren't asking questions in keywords. So if you have a question like, this was my personal experience, I live in Kitchener, and my question was, what's the largest size shed I can build before I need a permit? Like, if you go to brant.ca and type that in, you'll be disappointed. I was disappointed on kitchener.ca. Like that, you can't ask that type of question with traditional keyword search. And I've been working in municipal comms for years and years and running into this issue no matter how much work goes into sitemap and web copy and like designing the homepage, and like your comms team is likely doing all of those things, is likely feeling the pain as much as any resident. But now there's a different type of experience. And I think, am I allowed to leave the presentation and go to the internet? Do I have that? No, okay. So if you have a computer in front of you and you pulled up kitchener.ca, and you can now type in, this is Kawartha Lakes that's on the screen, but it's also live on kitchener.ca. You can, in just the search bar on that website, type in a question like, how many homeless people live here? Who is the mayor? What's the cost for a 500 square foot permit? What's the cost for a permit for a 500 square foot addition? What's the largest size shed I can build before I need a permit? You can actually ask it those questions and it will give you answers, contextual, nuanced answers. And I do recommend that, like, if you do it now or later, to just have a look, because it's a really different experience than if you ask those with any city site, including yours, that has link-based search. And this supports everyone in the county, especially in an election year. So just that one simple change, and to be clear, it's a search bar that would embed directly into your existing site. So you don't need a new site. I think you're already getting a new site. This would slot into that new site. You don't need to change your site map. You don't need to change your web copy. There's no extra lift. We would plug this search bar in, and it unlocks all of that content. The users can get clear answers. So if they are searching, whether it's keyword like marriage license or something longer like an actual query, they'll get the answers. The staff, like in Kawartha Lakes, we launched this in September in Kawartha Lakes, and within 2 days, their entire customer service team was using this as a frontline customer service tool. So when someone would call in or they would get a request, they would actually just type in that request to the search bar and get the answer as a bit of a shortcut. But we also are seeing, like in Kitchener as well, the amount of staff, non-customer service staff, but just city staff who have a lot of questions, can't remember who does that, who's responsible for that, what the steps are. They also use the search bar. And, you know, since we developed this, I've talked to dozens of elected officials and now better understand the service responsibilities and the number of phone calls and emails you receive and have to try to answer on the fly. And what we've heard is that some counselors get feedback like, oh, you're just trying to pass the buck when you answer the phone and say, oh, I'm not, let me get to the bottom of that. I'm gonna figure out who that is and get back to you. The resident, by the time they've picked up the phone and called you, they've likely tried on the website, couldn't find the answer, call you, you tell them you're gonna call them back, and it creates this less than ideal situation. But in that instance, if you had this on your website, somebody calls you and is asking about parking or permits or parades or council meetings, and you don't know the answer at your fingertips, you could type it in on your phone or on the website and get an answer in real time. In an election year, this has a lot of information transparency that gives residents of all types, folks who are really tech savvy, folks who aren't tech savvy. Again, it just looks like a search bar, right? It is AI powered, but it's not meant to be really in your face that you're now using AI. It's not a pop-up, it's not a chat bot. It just looks like search that gives your residents a way to connect directly with answers to their questions. And like, I can get as geeky as you want, maybe in the question period, if you have questions about the actual tech. It's completely Canadian owned. You would own all of your data. You would get great data back from it in terms of insights. It's a closed loop, so it's not connected to the larger internet. It's just connected to the information that's on your website. And it's tested to 97% accuracy. So that's about as accurate as AI will ever be. It's really, we've spent so much time tuning this for the municipal context. It is a tool just for municipalities. And what might be particularly interesting to you, it can also unlock council content. So you can use this search bar to connect to your eScribe minutes and agendas. So if you've ever spent a lot of time trying to be like, when did we do that? When did we talk about that? Didn't we do a report on that? Didn't somebody present to council on that in, what was it, October 2021? And then you go back through the calendars and you open the PDFs and you scroll through them. With this, you could literally, in the search bar, type in, when did we approve the beautification plan? Who was present at the April 11th meeting? Any of those questions that would actually pull it from the council minutes. And again, it is like, we're an AI company, but what we really are is a municipal services company that uses AI. I don't think AI is the answer for all of humanity's ails, but for this, like taking a bunch of content and contextualizing it and getting information in people's hands, that's exactly what it does. And so we use that, and then we've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours tuning it for the municipal context. What is a municipal question and what is a good municipal answer? How do we serve residents and staff well? And if you're thinking like, oh, I would love that, but for us, you know, our team is stretched, we've already got a new website, whatever those pieces are, like, that's exactly it. We've designed this for you, so it can be live in 4 weeks. It's spreadsheet-free testing. It's gonna take someone like the lead, probably in comms or IT, 5 hours, not more, from start to finish. All of the work's on us. It slots directly into your existing site. There's no extra fees from your web developers, and you would be able to test it. Like, the whole idea is that the people who need it and it would represent would be able to test it before it goes live. So we're really excited. It's live on Kitchener, it's live on Kawartha Lakes, it's going live on Leamington, and then Seashelt, BC is our first non-Ontario customer who's going live in April. Talking to lots of folks like you, and yeah, so I would love if you guys would consider this, or I'm happy to answer any questions you have about AI embedded search for your websites.
Okay, thank you for that, Christy. Questions from committee? Councillor Bell and Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thank you for your, through the chair, thank you for your presentation. I went on the Kitchener website, 161 square feet is the answer. But
Yeah.
I have long been frustrated with our search engine. And if Melissa was here, she would know we've had lots of conversations about how we can make it better. So I just tried, I typed in code of conduct, just 3 words that came to mind. I get 521 responses from our search engine. The third item down, or the fourth item down, is occupant load report. What the hell has that got to do with code of conduct? I don't know. So if your AI search or your AI tool can make that easier, I'm very supportive of it. So my question is, how much would it cost us?
Yeah, it's tiered by population size. So there's a few things that impact the cost. It would be population size and then integrations. And so, I mean, like, I'd be happy to put together like an actual quote for this team. I mean, it's like 50 cents a resident, it's a year. So there is an annual subscription. It's, I'll say pennies a resident, less than a cup of coffee. No, I'm just sorry. What we would do, so if you're saying like, what does it cost and what is the value it brings? What we're doing with our existing clients is building out an actual business case, right? So how many, based on your goals, is it digital experience? Is it diverting calls from customer service? Is it saving productivity or increasing productivity and saving time across the city? And be able to build you out a full business case that shows, based on the number of searches, what the actual value would be. It's like 10x what you would actually spend. Like the business cases we're building for the other municipalities it would be very compelling and defensible across the county of the actual value. Like in Kawartha Lakes, I think we've diverted 91 complaint-based questions from customer service through the website, which is both like an actual tangible cost and like a heart spiritual cost that we can actually service people well without it necessarily needing a person, which then opens up your customer service team or you folks to do the stuff that really needs humans, that really needs relationship, because you're not answering the same questions about some of those more repetitive questions.
Okay, Councillor Miller, then Councillor House.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Christy. Couple questions, but like Councillor Bell, I've been frustrated for years with our county website because I do find it is sometimes you can find the information, but sometimes you can't. And for example, if I type in on our website, who's the CAO, it comes up with 704 results. And the first one is libraries, archives, and museums. The James Campbell Trio, and then the next one is Make a Book Quilt. So I think we could use some help there. But you were talking about looking up information. I think you didn't say this, but I wanted to ask, it will tie into eScribe?
Yeah, exactly, it will.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, yeah, because I know, I've done, sometimes there's something coming up in a meeting and I'll do some background work. And you're right, I've been on council long enough that I remember we talked about it. I don't always know when, and sometimes I'll spend an hour going through meeting minutes, looking up stuff and finding, well, how did we arrive? Like, why are we in this situation that we're in? So, and then a couple of other things there. You mentioned elections. You said this works well with elections as far as getting the information going. And then on the platform itself, we're not on GovStack yet, but apparently you guys are pretty good with GovStack.
Yeah, and work with GovStack, GHD Digital as an organization. It's purpose-built, it slots directly in. And again, there's no extra fees from GovStack to add this, and there's no timeline delays. So this won't impact if you've got if your comms team or whomever is working on a website launch, this won't impact when that can go live. It can happen all at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea of election comms, I've talked to, again, dozens of counselors around information transparency, information accessibility, whether it's like people can't find the information, they don't understand the election issues, they don't understand what local government does versus provincial government does, or whatever it is. This unlocks that so they can ask those types of questions. It's also multilingual, so you could, if that mattered, you'd be able to toggle between languages if there's folks in the community who would be better served in a language other than English. And it also just is like, as you are publishing information on the website about how to vote, where to vote, like what to consider, that information is unlocked. It's just so much easier to use, especially for folks who aren't, like digitally native. For folks who this might feel clunky or hard in general, just using digital tools, this is the most simple application of AI you'll see.
Yeah, I know we got a lot of information, and it looks like it does a great job of unlocking that information. Okay, thank you, Christy, for the
Thank
answers.
you.
Okay, Councillor House?
Thanks very much. I'm going to echo a comment or two and then have a question, if that's okay. This is timely, I think. One of the things that people underestimate about being on council is the number of street questions and coffee shop questions. And a bunch of us went to an orientation session the previous term, and one of the consultants speaking to us said, "You'll never visit the grocery store the same again." And that's true, right? Just about every trip to the grocery store results in a task for most of us. And I agree with what the other councillors have said in terms of, I've talked to our communication staff, even in the last 24 hours, I had Dave and Melissa involved in a constituent who had a lot of questions about things related to our construction scheduling. And that's a subject that we're really good at in terms of communicating. We've done a lot of things to help people understand. But I think in 6 months, there are going to be a number of new faces around this council table. And it would help those new councillors a lot if there was an easier way to engage with the information. And topics like, and you made a good example, which meeting was it that guy came in and talked to us about blank? And to be able to do that kind of searching. So I think some version of improving access to the information that's already there is a really good idea. My specific question is, how does this tie into Engage Brant, which is a platform we already use, and can you talk about the mechanics of that a little?
Well, one of the big opportunities here is that you can actually connect any and all microsites you have together. So if you wanted the library, if you wanted the ice rinks, if you wanted Engage Brant, you can actually, what we're doing in the back end is we are scraping the content off your website, putting it into a database, and then the AI talks to the database, and it's scraping all of the time. Like it scrapes news every 3 hours. Like it's scraping all the time to collect the info. So if you have other platforms that you want to add to your database, we would add them like eScribe or Engage to the database, and then it's that single search bar that can connect. So, so you can create like a single source of truth that regardless of where the city talks about it, or the county talks about it, that you can access it through the search bar. And then if you were saying, okay, we want that, but we actually want to go next level, you can customize it. So if you have some like surveys on infrastructure, you've got construction projects on the go, and you've got engagement opportunities, you could create custom prompts. So if someone is searching about potholes and you have a survey about potholes or like infrastructure, that the prompt, it could answer the question, and then the AI can say, if you're interested in having your voice heard, consider taking our survey, and it would link over to the engagement platform. So there's other ways that you can customize it specifically for your instance as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the presenter. This is a question from someone who's been on council before municipalities even had computers, so bear with me. My first question is, have you made a presentation to our staff with regard to this product?
Yeah, Lisa was in a WowC presentation I did on Monday, so they would have for sure heard about it, but I haven't talked to them directly.
Usually vendors make presentations to staff, and then staff make the presentation to the committee or council. In this case, it's a little bit reversed, and the vendor is making the presentation to the council, and I would expect that the council would refer it to staff, which is backwards to the process that we usually do. Usually vendors do not make presentations about products to, that has been the practice in this municipality anyway. So I'm wondering if you are prepared to make a presentation to our staff and allow staff to vet the product and then make a presentation to council.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because every municipality works in a slightly different way, sometimes I talk to council, sometimes I talk to IT, sometimes I talk to comms, sometimes I talk to CAOs, and then every variation thereof. So like in Kitchener, even our project team is straight comms. In Kawartha Lakes, our project team is IT, customer service, and comms together, and like every variation thereof. So hopefully this doesn't feel out of order in a bad way. But we're basically talking to folks at meetings, doing keynotes, in delegations, just trying to like spread the word that this technology exists. But I would absolutely love the opportunity to connect with your comms team or your IT team, whoever it makes sense, and understand their vision for the site and what's on their roadmap and how this might fit in for sure.
You're good with that? Okay, Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just more of a comment, and most people know I'm pretty well computer illiterate, but I can look things up. And on Saturday morning, I'm looking for an email address for one of our senior staff that I did not have in my contacts. So I'm going through it, and I'm finding employees that are still on there that are been gone 5 years. So this stuff's all good if we don't keep it up to date. That's and I've been involved in other organizations, it's the same thing. If it's not kept up to date, then what is the sense of it? Because I just have some issues with the whole thing.
Any other questions from committee? Councillor Miller?
If you're ready for a motion. So I'll move to receive, and I'll ask that we refer this back to staff to look at, to investigate, and come back with a report on the pros and cons and costs and all that stuff. And I'll speak to the motion if I get a seconder.
Mayor Bailey? Councillor Miller?
I think something like this is long overdue. I thought it was just for information, but information is also communications. And the more I was looking into it, the more I realized, as good as it is for me, it'll save me a lot of time. Again, getting back to what Councillor House brought up, it was the same conclusion I come to. It will actually answer a lot of questions that people have, and it's so much easier. And Christy's here today because I asked her to come today because there's so many things that are kind of time-wise are kind of lining up, and the elections is one. There's a whole bunch of good things that can come out, we know, from the elections. The county is also engaged in a refresh of the website. I don't want to see a refresh. I'd like to see something like this personally. And secondly, the county's also switching platforms. Apparently, we're not on GovStack now. We will be next month. And my understanding is Christie's company is really good with GovStack. So a bunch of things are lining up time-wise. And like I said, I'd like your staff to at least look at this and let us know what they think.
Any other comments to the motion? Okay, so just to confirm, we're going to refer this to staff to work with Christie and come back with a report. Okay, everybody's clear? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to section number 5, adoption of the previous minutes from February 17th. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Howes. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, we will move on. Consent items to be received, or sorry, consent items to be approved. We've got a few of them on there. Do we want to do them one by one, or are we good to, does anybody want any pulled? Councillor Bell?
Mr. Chair, 711 and 715, please.
Councillor Kyle? 711, 715. Any other?
1 and 1.5.
Those are the hot ones, okay. Well, I'm going to throw in 1, 2 on that. So we might as well go through them one by one. So 7.1.1, first of all, a mover to get it on the floor. Councillor Howes, Councillor Bell. And Councillor Bell, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Where's Matt? There he is. Questions for Matt. I have 3 questions. There isn't a reference to blue bins in this, and I just wonder whether this new contractor will collect the blue bins as the current contractor does, or whether we're moving to some new system. Second question is, how does this stack up in cost terms relative to our current contract? And the third question is, what do we know about Environmental Solutions, 360-Degree Solutions Limited? I've not heard of them.
Okay. Who's going to come up? Matt, come on up. I'm assuming you might as well just stay there for the other ones, but we'll see how it goes. So you had 3 questions there. Are you good?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay.
With regards to your, or through you, Chair, with regards to your first question about the Blue Box program. So with the Blue Box program now being transferred over to the producer ran program, so our contract didn't have anything in there since they procure their own contracts. And the current contractor that has that contract for the producers is Terra Environmental, the same contractor that's picking up ours. That is a 7-year contract, so E360 or Environmental 360, who are recommending to award for the the collection contract for our materials, they wouldn't be collecting the Blue Box. So there is the possibility that collection days may be different due to these changes and alignment with the 2 different commodities being collected. So there might be some changes due to 2 businesses picking up that material, the differing material. With regards to your second or your last question about who is Environmental 360, so they are a company that was incorporated in 2018, but a lot of the upper management are long-term personnel that have been in the solid waste industry, municipal solid waste industry, looking at their CVs, which were part of the proposal submission. A number of them work for Waste Management, even Mterra. So that's where that company came from, was a lot of professionals from the waste industry to develop that program. Currently, E360 has 8 other municipal collection contracts within Ontario They do have other contracts out west, but they do have other businesses, solid waste businesses within Ontario. They do have a commercial arm, so that would be your roll-off bins, your overhead bins. The closest facilities that they operate that out of is Hamilton and Niagara. All the current municipal contracts that they have are in Eastern Ontario, so potentially, if they were awarded our contract, that would be the first contract in Central or Western Ontario that they would have. And sorry, can you repeat your
Yeah,
second question?
The middle question, through the chair, the middle question was, what's the difference in cost between this contract and the one that we currently have?
So currently, the 2026 budget for our collection contract that we have with Emterra is approximately 2.7 million. And as noted in the report, year one of the contract with Environmental 360 is just about a little bit over 2 million.
And does, if I may, Mr. Chair, the 2.7 from Emterra, that includes the blue bins?
No,
So this is a reduction in cost?
this is a reduction in costs.
Impressed. Yeah. I do have a question about the blue bins, if I just follow up on that one.
Go ahead.
I think our community is completely confused. They don't know whether blue bins are going to get picked up or not, and by whom. So I think when we come to communicate this change, we need to be really thoughtful and tell, as best we can, the community who will pick up the blue bins. I know we may not know for a little while yet, but there's sufficient change here that people will be confused.
At the start of this contract, so June 1st, 2027, Emterra will still have the blue bin contract from the producers, and that will, it's a 7-year contract that started on January 1st, 2026, so that contract will extend into 2032 for Emterra. So we will know who's collecting the blue box materials within the county for that period up to 2032.
We're going to go to Councillor Cowan in just one second, but I just want clarification on that because I'm a little confused here. So the contract with Emterra is still going to be to pick up the blue box up until 2020 or up until 2032. Can you just remind us of the price that we're paying strictly for the blue box?
So the municipality, Emterra is contracted by the producers organization to provide the blue box service. The municipality right now, we do not manage, we do not fund anything with regards to the blue box services, and that started as of January 1st, 2025. So that program, and we have tried to update county communications as much as possible to try to differentiate where people are now not to call the county if there are blue box concerns, complaints. On our literature that we put out the last couple of years does have the customer contact number, which is Emterra contact number, but I do appreciate the confusion because since Emterra is picking up our garbage and also picking up the blue box material for the producers group, they're utilizing the same trucks. So I can see how the resident would still think that it is a municipally ran program, but that did change as of January 1st, 2025.
Okay, and thank you for that clarification because that's, I'm sure a question will be asked is, okay, so if we're paying this much for garbage, how much are we paying for blue box? But the bottom line is, as far as financial impact on the county, there is none for blue box through 2032 anyway.
Correct.
Councillor Cowell.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you, Councillor Bell asked both of the questions that I was going to ask, so I'll just make a comment that I was pleasantly surprised to hear you say that the cost comparison is actually coming in as a reduction, so kudos to the team for negotiating that.
Councillor Miller, then Councillor Chambers.
Just a new question. So to be clear then, through you, Mr. Chair, to Matt, so there's going to be 2 trucks going up and down our roads?
That's correct.
And we don't even know if they're the same day.
That's correct.
We have no, that's unfortunate.
Staff will try to work with the 2 parties to recommend or see if they can be coordinated up to be on the same date for the ease or the majority of the collection areas, but it's something that we don't have control over, and we have to leave it up to the contractor to develop the most efficient routes.
Okay, yeah, still disappointed. $2 million for garbage, did we budgeted for that? I didn't see that in the report, but we put aside enough.
So that will be, that contract starts in 2027,
Right,
so
right.
it will be in the 2027 operating budget.
Sorry, yeah, that makes, okay, my apologies for that. And then the last question, the RFP, you did 70% technical and 30% price. I thought that was kind of heavily favored towards technical. Is that, you obviously felt that was the best way to go, though? Can you just kind of elaborate why we didn't go 50-50 or more on price?
Through you, Chair, from, I think historically what's happened, or the reason why a lot is put on technical, is really to let the contractors realize that service is a big component of this, and we want you to put the time in on putting a good proposal together, give us lots of details and thorough details on how are you going to provide that customer service and also the truck maintenance. And because through what they had to submit, they had to give us details on, you know, what is the maintenance, what's the frequency of the monthly checks, what do those consist of, what's your organizational chart and structure, and how are you going to react if there's a unplanned emergency of, you know, staffing interruptions, strikes along those. So there is a lot of detail that we're asking for to prepare for unforeseen circumstances, to make sure we can continually provide this important service to the public on a continual basis.
Okay, yeah, I know it's, if it doesn't get picked up, that's the number one thing. People will pick up the phone and call me, and I usually end up picking up the garbage myself. So, okay, thank you, man.
Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Matt. The transition period is a year away essentially, and so the next council will have to deal with the change in providers, which members of council that were on council when the last change happened, there is a lot of confusion and a lot of concern that will come forward, but that'll be a year from now. So my question is, the present contractor, knowing that in 1 year hence they won't be having the contract anymore, do you anticipate any problems associated with that in terms of continuing the service that they're providing now, knowing that, you know, in a year, what the hell?
Through you, Chair, I mean, there is always a concern when there is a changing of contractors, especially in this business, and will the staff stay on? With Environmental 360 being new to this area for municipal contracts, I would foresee them reaching out to try to build with the same staff that's currently manning our current contract. With regards to concerns of performance with the our solid waste contract, we do have, you know, liquidated damages that can be applied to maintain that level of service that we're required. So if we do start getting into a rough patch of, you know, late collections or missed collections, we do have those mechanisms to hopefully incentivize the current contractor to maintain that level of service for us.
See, and I don't know, this is just hypothetical, but if one of the current providers' truck breaks down and 6 months before the end of the contract is over, they're not going to be out buying a new truck for 6 months, and that would maybe entice them into saying, well, we'll just do with what we've got, which is, again, problematic with regard to timing of pickup and stuff like that. That's my concern, and I think staff are onto that, and will hopefully there won't be any issues.
Any other questions from committee? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor, seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 712, which is RPT 005526, pavement markings. Can I get a mover? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Miller. Questions from committee? Okay, one I did have, I think this is fantastic. I'm just gonna add, and even though it's not in my ward, can we make sure that 8th concession between Bishopsgate and Harley Road is on that list for marking? Because it's in dire need. So I don't know who needs to hear that, but 8th concession between Bishopsgate and Harley Road. Thank you. Counselor Miller?
Just on that note, I will say that at Roma, attended the rural road safety session, and one of the big things they did say that contributed to road safety in rural areas was road markings, and that middle line is so important. And I know there's a lot of roads, not just the 8th concession, that are not marked. I think, I was talking to Rick, now this is a few years ago, there's reasons why some of them aren't marked, but it would be good if we could see more of them marked, because like I say, it's a big contributor to road safety in our area.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is great. Any other questions from committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 713, RPT 0094-26, agreement for the share of the drainage assessment. Can I get a mover? Counselor Miller? Counselor Bell? Nobody had questions on that one? Any at this point? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 714, RPT-0118-26, creation of a sponsorship user fees. Can I get a mover to get it on the floor? Mayor Bailey, Counselor Howes. Questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 715, RPT 0020-26, annual summary reports. Can I get a mover? Counselor Bell, Counselor Kyle, and then Counselor Bell and Counselor Kyle, you had questions on this one?
Yeah, mine are actually comments, so I hope you'll accommodate me. I just want to say what a great performance that this report reflects. But for me, the biggest positive is the degree to which we have surplus capacity. And it's a question I get from residents on an annual basis. We're running out of water. Well, I think this report actually shows we're not running out of water. So thank you to Andrew and the team.
Counselor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, I'd echo Councillor Bell's comments. I do have one question, and that is with respect to the sodium levels that were flagged in Canesville, Mount Pleasant, and Bethel. I think in the past, there's been some discussion around Bethel and maybe what could be causing that, but just wondering, do we have a sense of why the sodium is higher in those particular areas when it's not an issue in other spots? And what do we do to mitigate that?
Andrea, okay.
Through the chair to Councillor Kyle, when it comes to sodium in the groundwater, it really comes down to protecting the water resource at the source. So around the Bethel Water Treatment Plant in 2026 there, we had our source protection plan updated. So we do now have an issue contributing area around the Bethel Water Treatment Plant, specifically for sodium and chloride. So what that allows the municipality to do through source water protection is to start working with the landowners and the businesses within the wellhead area to manage that threat at the source. So where is the threat really coming from? It's really coming from de-icing salt, right? So we did work closely with the Roads Division, and now we have a salt management plan for the Road Authority, really looking at the application of road salt within the right-of-way, making sure that when it's within the wellhead protection area, it's limited. Now we're also going to be working directly with all the landowners in this area to look at the level of threat specifically from their properties. And what does that look like? It looks like our risk management official, who's Cambium on behalf of the County of Brant, working directly with these property owners, developing what we call risk management plans, and really trying to limit the amount of sodium and chloride that's getting into the ground.
Councilor Kyle?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. One quick follow-up then. So with something like the sodium, obviously the road salt is part of the issue. So do we see higher levels at certain times of the year, or once it's there, is it there? like, is it higher this time of year, for example, than it would be in July or August when we're not using road salt?
Yep, through the chair to Councillor Kyle, there is a delay, but it is a seasonal effect. Specifically around the Bethel Water Treatment Plant, which is the largest threat in the county that you can see right now. We do have a stormwater management facility that helps recharge the groundwater so that we can pull the water, because we're always looking at quality and quantity. So our stormwater operation has also changed the way that we're managing that stormwater pond to try to limit the amount of sodium going in during those peak times. We're also working with new developments and developers around the Gilbert Water Treatment Plant to mitigate this risk that we're already seeing at Bethel. So when we begin developing around the Gilbert Water Treatment Plant, we're creating an operational mechanism so that, again, we can manage the water quality and the water quantity that we see at the Gilbert Water Treatment Facility. So.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just a comment. I'll echo what was said. We appreciate the good work you guys are doing
Thank you.
in keeping us out of jail, so that's good. The sodium, in answer to Councillor Kyle's question, you said road salt, groundwater. Canesville, though, that's Brantford water. I mean, it wasn't extremely high, 65 milligrams per liter. Was Brantford also, would they have been high too? Like, or was it just for the Canesville area that it was high, do you know?
No, through the chair to Councillor Miller. So Brantford has issues with because it's a surface water intake, it's not a wellhead protection area, it's an intake protection zone. So again, how is the sodium getting into the Grand River? Again, it's stormwater flushing its way in. And it's not just from the roadways, it's from properties and private properties, right?
Okay, fair enough. And you only have to test for sodium once every 5 years?
That's correct.
Wow, I was kind of surprised at that. I should know that, but, and then, okay, let me ask a question about quantity. The usage that's going on, and I'll quote the report, has not resulted in long-term changes. It was, as you know, a really, really dry year last year. Are the aquifers a bit lower than previously? Do we know? Like, I suspect they're within their long-term averages, but are they?
Yep. Through the chair to Councillor Miller, we see seasonal fluctuations, but they're well within the longer-term averages that we've been seeing. We did have this past summer significant drought, but it has recharged itself.
Okay, that's good to hear. And then the last question is around fluoride. Is Paris the only water system that we add fluoride to?
Paris drinking water system is the only system that we add fluoride to.
Yeah.
There is naturally occurring fluoride in our other systems, but not that we add.
Okay, and that's a direction from the Ministry of Health. And is that, if we wanted to change that, would we have to get their permission, or could we change that on our own?
I would have to, through the chair to Councillor Miller, I would have to look into the history around how fluoride, the decision was made to start adding fluoride to the system. I believe there was a multi-pronged approval process, and it would be a very complicated thing to peel it back. It is something that we could have that conversation. It is a very hot topic. There are some people that are very supportive of fluoride and some people that are very much against the addition of fluoride.
Yeah, and I understand why it's there. Apparently for our dental health and all that, but it just, to me, it seems like we're using fluorinated water to wash our cars and our dishes, and it seems odd, but I'll leave it at that, because I know that's not really, anyways, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from committee? Okay, seeing none, I'll just echo thanks for this report. There's a lot of good information in there, and as Councillor Bell said, one of the keys that I pulled out is that, as of right now, we're good with the water supply. So that answers a lot of questions for a lot of people. So that's a great news story. We've got it moved and seconded. No further questions. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. 7.1.6 RPT-0064-26 Heritage Committee reference updates. Can I get a mover? Councillor Howes, Councillor McAlpine. Questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, consent items to be received. Looks as though we have two. Anybody want either of them pulled? Counselor Kyle?
7.2.1, please.
Okay, so we'll just do them one by one. So 7.2.1 is RPT 0115-26, council committee attendance. Counselor Kyle, you'll move that. Can I get a seconder? Counselor Miller? Counselor Kyle, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one quick question. This is a great report, and I always find it interesting to look through. Just looking at the page that shows the expenses, a question for staff. Would you be able to just remind me, and for anyone that might be watching, what goes into the calculations for our expenses for each of us individually on council?
Who can, Heather?
Thank you, through the chair. So the items in that line include any mileage costs, travel expenses, which include hotel accommodations, taxi, public transportation, parking. Sometimes if there's a reservation that gets canceled and can't be refunded, that's included in there. Meals related to travel, cell phones and mobile internet costs, and the councilor's general expenses line that we approved as part of the last remuneration bylaw.
Okay. Any other questions on that report? Counselor McAlpine?
I was just wondering, on the section where the different committees that I'm on, I take part in the Brant Waterways Committee and the Brantford Chamber of Commerce, and I was wondering if that should be included in that report, as I'm appointed by the county to sit on those boards.
Okay, I think the clerk's going to speak to that.
Through your chair to Councilor McAlpine, that must have just been overlooked, which I can add that to the report going forward to make sure those two boards are included.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from committee? I guess the only one I had, if we could just get a reminder with our committees, is at what point do we do a review of hypothetically, let's say somebody's missed half the meetings or something like that? Is that something that is looked at by staff? Is that something that's looked at by that committee? Can somebody just remind us how that works?
Through the chair, so we don't have like a strict, if you've missed so many meetings, we bring it forward. Usually if the committees have concerns about particular membership, they bring that to staff's attention and we would do a report to the committee and or to council. The rules obviously are different for councilor members at council table, but for committees, we've never had the practice of policing attendance.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 7.2.2, Fire Service Activity Report. Can I get a mover? Councilor Kyle, Councilor Howes. Questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Section 8, staff reports, 8.1, RPT-0113-26, 40-kilometer-an-hour neighborhood area speed limit update. Can I get a mover? Councilor Howes, seconder, Councilor Bell. Questions on that report? Councilor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for Greg or Rick, I'm not sure. We've moved to 40 kilometers per hour in parts of the county. You said that the 2025 review of completed areas showed an average speed of 42.25, which is good. Is that different? Has it changed?
Thank you. To the chair and the councillor. That has changed based on a review of those streets that were 50 kilometers. The average speed was indeed higher. So once these speeds in these areas were reduced to 40, those speeds had decreased.
So it's having a positive
from our
effect.
previous, from our previous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Howes?
Thanks. While Rick's up there, So just following up through the chair, following up on Councillor Bell's question, we don't observe a significant change in enforcement. So the understanding would be that people are driving slower because they're reading the signs? Is that how we infer on this? Like, it just, we get asked this all the time, right? Everybody talks about, you know, there's too much speeding on their street, somebody's gonna be killed, we hear that a lot. And we're conscious about it, and we point people towards the Safe Streets program, but I'm just at the sincere question, is it, like, you change the sign from 50 to 40 and we're actually observing that people's behavior improves?
To the chair and to the councillor. I can't speak for anybody, but for myself, it's not just the signs, it's other traffic calming measures that we've implemented and you know, speed humps, things like that in the area. And hopefully, you know, the more and more we do, the more and more people become aware. And that's our mandate for safety and reduction.
Great, well, it's great to hear that it's working. Thanks for all of the efforts.
Any other questions from committee? Okay, just one comment from myself, and I'm sure Councilor Bell can attest to this. There's several streets in here that we've had several complaints on, so I appreciate the fact, and I like the fact that it's a neighborhood area now. It's not just a specific street, the way it's closed in the neighborhood area. Honestly, I think that's an easier to digest for the public, because they kind of know, because there's signs going into that. It's not just 40 kilometers an hour, it's 40 kilometer an hour neighborhood. So maybe that's what's kind of triggering it as well. But I think this is, you know, good. And then the ones that are to come in 2027, as you listed there too, there's more to come. So I think that just shows we're doing everything we can to try and calm the traffic with this, and to your point, Rick, with other traffic calming measures. So I think that's good. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, 8.2, which is RPT 0110-26, noise bylaw review. Greg? Can I get a mover to get it on? Actually, I guess we've got a couple options here, so let's just hear Greg's report, and then we'll look for a motion for one of the options.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Do you want some room here? I'm just going to provide a little summary of the report. Basically, we're providing an overview of the county's ongoing bylaw review, and it outlines the considerations involved in adopting decibel-based regulations, which is new to us. The report explains the operational, technical, and legal resource challenges associated with quantitative sound limits. It includes equipment costs, staff training requirements, some of the environmental variables affecting measurements, and the potential increased demands for after-hours response. Staff are presenting two options for direction today. The first option is maintaining the current quantitative or qualitative level with improved education and enforcement, kind of what we're doing right now. The second option is adopting a hybrid model that combines qualitative and quantitative standards for specific recurring noise sources. The information is provided to support informed decision-making as council prepares to modernize the noise bylaw. We want to make sure that it aligns with the related policies, including the special events policy. So we've prepared a short PowerPoint presentation this morning, which kind of summarizes the contents of the report while providing a little additional information. You will see there's a slide that talks about the process, and I think the whole idea with this exercise is just to give the committee an idea that it's not as cut and dried as just, you know, grabbing a sample and you're on your way. There's a lot to it. The staff training component is quite extensive from what I understand. It's a week course, and it's pretty intense. With no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda, and we'll start with the presentation. Thank you.
Can you run that guy for me? Can you run that guy for me? Good morning. All right, so Greg and I are here through you to the chair, Greg and I are here today to walk you through the noise bylaw review considerations. Our focus is on understanding decibel limits and the practical realities of enforcing them. The County of Brant plans to undertake a review of its noise bylaw to evaluate application of decibel levels or decibel limits for enforcement purposes. This initiative aims to provide the Administration and Operations Committee with a comprehensive understanding of the advantages and disadvantages of quantitative standards which establish clear, measurable decibel limits that cannot be exceeded. The current noise bylaw, enacted in 2022 and largely unchanged since 2000, has proven effective but requires modernization to address our evolving community needs and enforcement challenges. This review process is aligned with Strategic Priority 4, stable and responsive governance, and it will ensure that regulatory framework remains transparent, equitable, and adaptable.
Amanda, sorry to interrupt you there.
Yeah,
Can
of
you
course.
just turn that mic a little bit more towards you?
Is that better?
Yeah, just so everybody can hear. Thank you.
I don't often get complaints I'm not loud enough. The report emphasizes that noise bylaws serve as dual purpose, mitigating disruptions to community well-being while also balancing fairness and economic activity. Public engagement will be critical to achieving consensus, as residents and businesses often hold differing expectations regarding enforcement. Quantitative standards are perceived as objective, yet they introduce operational complexities, including specialized equipment, calibration, staff training, and legal scrutiny. Alternatively, qualitative standards prohibit unreasonable or disturbing noise, offer flexibility, but may lack clarity for enforcement and compliance. The presentation will outline the technical, environmental, and legal considerations associated with adopting a decibel-based regulation and provide the committee with the necessary insight to make informed decisions during our 2026 bylaw update. So a decibel isn't a simple linear measurement, it's logarithmic. Oh, here. You're supposed to run this part. We lost connection. Oh, there we go. A decibel isn't a simple linear measurement, it's logarithmic. That means that when a sound increases by 10 decibels, it actually means it's 10 times more intense. This decibel scale gives examples of what levels of everyday measurement, and it's what makes decibel enforcement challenging. The decibel numbers don't always translate to how people feel the noise. So as you can see, something as simple as a police siren is at 120 decibels or a jet engine at 130, whereas a conversation in a room can be around 60 decibels. This slide shows how sound intensity increases as you move up the scale. So something like a conversation in a room is moderate, where an airplane going by can be deemed to be extremely loud. This button. There we go. The MECP provides acceptable noise guidelines for different situations like indoor and outdoor, daytime and nighttime, urban, semi-urban, and rural areas. These examples help put things into perspective. Again, a quiet room can be around 30 decibels, a normal conversation is 60, a lawnmower or leaf blower can be 80 to 90, and a concert can be around 120 decibels. Operational and technical challenges. Implementing decibel-based enforcement requires specialized equipment and rigorous staff training. Sound level meters comply with recognized standards by the IEC, which is the International Electrotechnical Commission, which is the leading organization in noise standards. The standard it's called IEC 61672 Class 1. This will ensure that the evidence that we collect is reliable and defensible. These devices require annual calibration, which adds reoccurring cost and logistical complexity. Staff must be trained not only to operate the equipment, but also interpret readings accurately to adhere to standardized measurements protocols. Without consistent training and calibration, readings may fail to withstand legal scrutiny in both our administrative hearing process and court proceedings. The requirements introduce a major shift from traditional enforcement tools and will need greater technical skills and procedural precision. Furthermore, the purchasing of the equipment and the development of training programs will require upfront investment and ongoing resource allocation. These factors highlight the importance of evaluating whether the benefits of perceived objectivity outweigh the financial and administrative burdens associated with quantitative enforcement. This slide is an example of the required steps and complexity involved in obtaining a decibel read that would provide sufficient evidence in a court proceeding. It includes identifying the source, calibrating your equipment, assessing environmental conditions at the time, determining an appropriate location to conduct a noise read, while also identifying ambient levels that could provide a baseline, and finally collecting and preserving that data that is essentially our evidence. Decibel measurements can also heavily be impacted by environment. Variables such as wind speed, humidity, and temperature can distort sound readings, while background noise from traffic, trains, HVAC systems, or nearby construction can mask or inflate measurements. Additionally, sound reflections from buildings or hard surfaces can artificially increase decibel levels, and the distance and angle between the noise source and the meter can also significantly influence the results. These complexities require enforcement officers to exercise judgment and follow strict protocols to ensure reliable data is collected. However, with standardized procedures, achieving consistency across diverse environments remains challenging. These limitations raise questions about the practicality of relying solely on quantitative standards, as enforcement outcomes may vary based on uncontrollable external conditions. Addressing these would involve significant training and the development of guidelines that can adjust to changing environmental factors. So these are just some of the technical terms required while conducting a decibel level reads. Different types of noise require different measurement settings. Choosing the wrong one can lead to an inaccurate or misleading results. Typically, when a noise read is conducted, we're looking at taking a read of approximately 10 minutes to an hour, and it gives it the average of what the decibel is over that hour, and that is deemed to be your violation or your baseline. Our legal complexities and enforcement risks. While decibel limits appear objective, they introduce a significant legal complexities. Court may require detailed proof of equipment calibration, staff training, and adherence to standardized protocols. Defendants can challenge readings based on environmental conditions, procedure errors, and potentially undermining the enforcement efforts. In some cases, municipalities may need to rely on expert testimony of consultants, which of course increase legal costs and prolong proceedings. Short duration noise events also present additional challenge, as they may cease before a measurement can be taken, leaving insufficient evidence to support charges. These factors collectively reduce the likelihood of successful prosecution and highlight the importance of developing robust protocols capable of withstanding any legal scrutiny. Municipalities must weigh these risks against the perceived benefits of qualitative or quantitative standards, considering whether alternative approaches such as a hybrid model might be more of a practical balance between objectivity and enforceability. Public perception also plays a critical role in the success of noise regulations. Residents often assume that decibel limits provide clear, enforceable thresholds, yet they lack access to calibrated meters, creating mismatches between perceived and measured noise levels. This disconnect can lead to frustration when enforcement outcomes do not align with their expectations. Additionally, uniform decibel limits may fail to account for variations in ambient noise across rural, suburban, and urban areas, as well as cultural or community activities that contribute to neighborhood character. Seasonal factors such as open windows in summer further complicate enforcement consistency. A one-size-fits-all approach risks unfair results, impacting some communities and activities more than others. To address these concerns, municipalities may need to consider flexible standards or exemptions that reflect local context while maintaining fairness and transparency. Again, public engagement will be essential to ensure that any regulatory changes are understood, accepted, and supported by our community. Our next steps, the review of the county noise bylaw underscores the complexity of adopting a decibel-based enforcement standard. While quantitative limits offer perceived objectivity and transparency, they introduce significant operational, technical, and legal challenges that may outweigh their benefits. Costs associated with equipment, training, and ongoing calibration, combined with environmental variability and legal scrutiny, complicate the enforcement and reduce the likelihood of a successful prosecution. Public expectation and equity considerations further highlight the need for a balanced approach that reflects community values and practical realities. Moving forward, staff recommend continued analysis and robust public engagement to explore options, including qualitative standards or hybrid models that combine flexibility with measurable thresholds. The ultimate goal is to develop a modernized bylaw that promotes community well-being, ensures fairness, and remains enforceable under real-world conditions. The committee's informed decision-making will be critical to achieving these objectives before the end of 2026.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, who knew it'd be so complex to bring something in like that, eh? Questions from committee? I imagine there's a few here. We'll go Councillor Howes and Councillor Bell.
Thank you through the chair to Greg and Amanda. And first, thanks for putting all this together. And thanks also for both of you being so responsive when my many questions have come through to you. So you're looking for direction on this. And it's a little tricky to me because my observation, at least in Ward 2, has been that the real noise issues are infrequent but significant. So it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's a big deal. We've had issues with the Legion, we've had issues with industrial places, we've had issues with music festivals, and it raises this as a very big topic, and the question that always comes up is, well, don't we have a quantifiable, way to just pass-fail on things which you've shown us is kinda possible but complicated. Am I right in thinking that with our existing approach, without going to all this extra, but with our existing approach, we have proven that we have a process in place that allows anomalies to be taken care of? That when there is one of these rare situations in a neighborhood, in a whatever, that the system we have in place allows us to have some flexibility and allows us to deal with individual big deals?
Through the chair, so the short answer is yes. Obviously, we have some work to do with our bylaw. It's antiquated. There's certainly some things that we can tighten up as far as language goes. There's a variable, various approaches that we can take. We can look at, making different policy changes and then tying the policy to the bylaw. If you do want to have quantifiable measures, that's, one approach that we could take. It would be a condition of a permit. What we have right now is subjective, and there's been a push from the courts that they want more objective language in bylaws. Not to say that you have to have quantifiable parameters to have objective language. We just have to be very careful with the case law that's out there that, we're following what the courts want. Having quantifiable parameters certainly meets that criteria, but there's other language that you can use as well that is also subjective but objective enough for the courts to accept. So there's various ways that we can approach enforcement of the noise bylaw. We've been doing it with quantifiable measures for decades. It still seems to be, quite effective. Amanda's done an environmental scan. There are a number of municipalities that are still doing it that way, and it's effective. We have work to do with our bylaw, obviously, and I think that's what we're seeking from council, some direction as to, what they want to see in a bylaw. We've heard, this decibel conversation over and over again, and we thought it was important to present it before the committee.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks to Greg and Amanda for doing this work. It feels like it's a natural follow-on from the conversations we had about Paris Drinks Fest. Just as a bit of background, you were here a month ago, Greg, and you were talking about nuisance lighting. And the statistic that I remember you brought out was in 6 years you'd had 38 complaints. So it's basically 6 a year. The statistic you have in your report for noise is 2 orders of magnitude different. It's 122 a year. So there's something that we need to work on there, so you're quite right about that. Noise and light clearly need on-site presence. I mean, I've actually been subject to I've made a noise complaint. And unless you deal with it at the time, you know, it's no good coming tomorrow and asking about the noise complaint because it's, you know, the party's over. So some of the issues that you've raised as downsides from the direction you're talking about here, I think we do have to recognize that as we become more and more densely populated, we can expect noise complaints to rise. We had to call out the police, and I'm not sure that's the best use of our OPP resources. And I certainly would not be opposed to having a bylaw officer on call to address issues as they come along. So I don't want that to be a reason why we don't do the right thing. I think we just have to recognize times are changing, our population is changing, our population density is definitely changing, at least in the urban area, not so much in the rural parts of the community. Investing in equipment, I think after the Paris Drinks Fest, I did a little bit of my own research. Yes, it is relatively expensive, but it is well tried, it is well tested. There are organizations that do the calibrations, so it's not an insurmountable administrative burden. I would, at the right time, I'm going to make the motion to take option 2 of the 2 that have been proposed. I think for the kind of things that I called in for as a noise complaint, actually having the OPP turn up and telling the people next door to be quiet worked. Didn't need any more than that. If it's Paris Drinks Fest and the neighbours complain that the noise is too loud, then having that quantitative statement and proof really, really helps. Just interesting, the comment Amanda made about decibel levels. Concerts, you said I think 120 decibels. So on your scale, that's verging on painful. And I'm sure it was verging on painful for some people. And that's where you get this problem that, you know, what is great for some people is horrible for others. And I think we have to recognize our duty of care to people that, you know, we cannot impose painful noise on people who don't want it. So the way around that is to have decibel limits which are set and controlled to. And I sent a note to Adam just after the last conversations about Paris Drinks Fest. There are very well tried and tested systems that festival organizers can use to control sound. But at the same time, we as the arbiters of the whole process need to be able to confirm if we get a complaint that indeed the right action has been taken. So I'm very supportive of option 2. I think it's the way to go. Yes, it will need for us to spend some money and invest some time, but you know, the future is going to require us to have more and more attention to this issue as we grow and become more densely populated. So great report, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Greg and Amanda. I thought you did it. I liked the report. I thought it gave us a lot of good information about how the quantitative ability to measure the limitations. I thought you did a good job on that. But those limitations are today, right, when you write the report. And I'm just wondering, the device that you show in the picture that measures decibels, I mean, that device didn't exist, I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So my question to you guys is, Given the growth of the county and the advancements in technology, do you see the quantitative approach being taken on by more and more municipalities as time goes on? Like, would we even be having this discussion in 2040? Or whoever's around the table, would we, you know what I mean? Would we even be having this discussion in 2040? It says, no, just use this device and it'll.
Through you to the chair, to Councillor Miller. Through the jurisdictional scans, the majority of the municipalities that are using quantitative are larger municipalities. Toronto, for one, has adopted a significant quantitative bylaw. However, they have staff available 24 hours to take those reads, which will be challenging for our municipality or costly to ensure that we have staffing available if a wholly quantitative approach was taken. Additionally, the challenge with some of the quantitative complaints is that if somebody doesn't believe that that level is acceptable and want it turned down even lower, it's at a limit that can't be changed because it's within the compliance of the bylaw. So it comes with its challenges as well, but certainly the bigger municipalities that do have more of those events and festivals are carrying more of a quantitative, but you get into the smaller municipalities that have such a mix, we're not seeing the fully quantitative bylaws yet.
Yeah, I know we're not seeing it yet, but do you think it will be coming more and more online?
Through you to the chair and Councilor Mayor, I think it would depend on the need for it. You know, to have an officer on 24 hours to respond to 5 complaints a month, potentially in the summer, may not need that volume, where if it's something that we can adopt more hybrid, where you can include it in permits and levels to make sure that we can manage it that way rather than just restricting it wholly as a bylaw, could be more beneficial at this time.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
If I can just add on Amanda's point, I think we're gonna have to be selective if we go down that road as to, you know, what we're gonna apply quantifiable standards. I don't think it's carte blanche for everything. It doesn't work for dogs barking, but it will work for other things that are more popular that I think would be more effective.
No other questions. Just a clarification that I had, and Councilor Bell actually kind of hit to it. When you say in there, 2025 Environment Enforcement Services received 122 calls for service in relation to the noise bylaw. 2 things. You know, do we know right off the top of your head, was that, let's say that there was a big party going on and we got, you know, 10 calls for that particular incident? Because I'm trying to differentiate here. Is it 122 unique incidents, or, you know, were 50 of them for the same noise per se? Do we know?
We could do a little bit of a deep dive on that. We do have some recurring noise issues that are neighbor to neighbor, particularly barking dogs. There's, you know, a couple of instances that come to mind. We can certainly provide that information if you'd like, but, you know, noise calls are generally probably the higher level calls that we get. You know, it's a very common complaint. It's often barking dogs, music, just a variety of things that are disturbing the inhabitants. So if you look at 122 and we had 2,400 calls, you know, it makes up a significant chunk of the calls that we respond to, considering, you know, the 25 plus bylaws that we enforce.
Right. Okay, so just to clarify that, 122 of 2,400. Yeah, and I'm not looking for, okay, I'm calling bylaw because the dog barked today. 2 weeks down the road, I'm calling bylaw because the same dog barked. Yeah. What I'm talking about is, you know, potentially like on a specific day, there was a big party going on and you know, 20 neighbors called in. Because where I'm going with this is, you know, as to the, you know, the light pollution complaints, they are very low. And to what Councillor Howes was getting to before, and you assured the fact that, you know, as we are now, the present state of things, you're able to hit those unique ones by themselves. So I don't want to give too much work, but it'd be interesting to understand, of those 122, is that, you know, how many occurrences type thing.
And I can certainly expand on that. If we receive multiple complaints, they are entered as individual complaints for tracking so that we can track how many complaints we got per complaint. So for example, for Paris Drinks Fest, we can specifically identify on that date we received X amount of complaints. It may or may not have been related to the noise, we may have gotten a parking or things like that, but we can pull per date how many complaints were received, and we can identify specifically, you know, that 4 complaints were received for Paris Drinks Fest on the Saturday night.
Okay, perfect. And just even, I think if you throw something in a Friday file, that'd be fantastic.
Of course.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to committee here. Councillor Bell, you wanted to make a motion for one of the options?
Option 2, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we've got option 2 on the floor. Is there a seconder for option 2? Mayor Bailey. Discussions on option 2. Councillor Bell and Councillor Miller.
Thank you. I like the selectivity of it. I think you're right. Many things can be dealt with just by an officer turning up and say, turn that down, or, you know, lock your dog up, or whatever it is. But there are some that need more. And I'm not going to pick on Paris Drinks Fest, but from my home in the middle of the summer, 10:30 one night, there was a huge, loud sound coming from somewhere to the west of us. And it was an ethnic group celebrating one of their celebrations, unaware of the noise bylaw. So I think that if you look in your record, you might find, Amanda, that was one night when you got quite a few calls. And we must have been a kilometre away from the source of the noise. But people were coming out on the street singing, where's that sound coming from? So I think in those kind of situations, big festivals, and there are many we have in Paris now, and the number is growing, and it won't be long before they're elsewhere in the county as well. So I think, you know, that selectivity, I think, is really, really good. I do appreciate, you know, you do need to do a bit more research on what the decibel level would be for these situations. And my own research around Paris Drinks Fest showed me there's a variety. You can go from 65 to 85. So I'm not going to tell you what the number is, but I think that's part of the process that you have to follow now if this option is approved. But thank you again.
Thank you. Councillor Miller?
I'll just say, I think the qualitative approach in the report says it is the way to go with enhanced education and enforcement. But at the same time, I like option 2 because it kind of dips our toes into that quantitative aspect. So we're going to get a little more experience with it, using it, and because I think down the road we'll probably rely on that more as time goes on. So prefer the qualitative approach. It's worked for years and years and years, but I think as times change and as we grow, maybe quantitative should be something we are able to at least to pull up periodically, and I think option 2 will get us there.
Any other questions, comments to the motion that's on the table? Option number 2. Seeing none, all those in favor of option number 2? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you for that, guys. Moving on to 8.3, RPT 013726, Bill 60, Water and Wastewater Corporations Act. Can I get a mover? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Miller. Did you want to speak or just questions? Yeah.
Good.
When you're ready, yeah.
Okay. So through the chair to council, Bill 60, which received royal assent on November 27th of last year, included changes to the Water and Wastewater Corporations Act. And essentially what the Water and Wastewater Corporations Act does is it enables the province to direct the transfer of municipal water and wastewater ownership and operations to a corporately structured public entity. So I just want to share for council that it's important to note that currently within this act, the transfer can only be to a lower tier municipality. However, a lower tier municipality isn't defined. So typically, it would say in legislation like this means the same as in the Municipal Act. And further, there's no definitions of single tier or upper tier municipalities. So the assumption and the way it is written is that it would be the applicability would be a upper tier municipality who typically operates water and wastewater services for the entire region. An example would be the region of Waterloo, would be told, okay, you need to dictate those services down to these lower tier municipalities, and they will form under a public corporation. So what exactly is a what is a public water and wastewater corporation? So it is a provincially enabled corporate entity established to own, operate, and manage water and sewer services that have traditionally been delivered by municipalities. While structured as a corporation, it's a public entity, and what that means is that they would be governed by the same rules and regulations that a municipality has. An example that is a regulatory requirement is the annual drinking water report you received today. That would still apply to this public entity. And I'm just going to read the duties of what this corporation would be able to do on behalf of a municipality, because I think it explains it very well. So the duties of a water and wastewater public corporation are to ensure safe, reliable, sustainable provision of water and sewage services in accordance with applicable legislation, to plan, manage, maintain, and invest in water and sewage infrastructure to serve the needs of existing and future users in a manner that prudently accelerates growth and protects public health and the environment, to provide safe, reliable, and sustainable water and sewage services, to establish rates for the provision of water and sewer services, to comply with any requirements prescribed by the regulations, and such other duties as may be prescribed by the regulations. So, and that's key, because when I was researching this, the regulations aren't set. So there's a significant number of unknowns, but really from the duties in the legislation, you can kind of infer the purpose of it, and it really aligns with the province's directive of creating development and removing barriers for infrastructure growth to support new homes, businesses, etc. So some key unknowns that aren't included in the regulations. So ownership. Who will own the public corporation? I'll use ourselves as an example. If the county was an upper tier municipality, and say Paris, Burford, etc., were the lower tiers, would they have a share in the ownership of that corporation? How much private investment influence will be permitted? Will any be allowed at all? If additional municipalities were added, would they be added to the existing model, or would separate corporations exist? You know, using the region of Peel and the region of Waterloo, the region of Peel is the pilot for this model. If the region of Waterloo was directed to transfer their services, would they be amalgamated into the existing corporation, or would they set up one on their own? Other unknowns are the corporate structure. So how would the board be structured? Within the legislation, the province has the ability to regulate the composition of the board, but exactly what that looks like and how different municipalities would, say, have a seat on that table is unknown. It's assumed that there would be provincial appointees, and I say assumed just because it's typical with how the province utilizes public entities under legislation. They typically appoint a provincial representative to sit on those boards. You know, the Professional Engineers of Ontario is an example of that. So this isn't confirmed in the regulations, but AMO has stated, while governance shift to a professional board of directors, the structure ensures that assets remain publicly owned, a key outcome advocated by AMO. The intent of this model is to create new revenue streams by allowing the constituent municipalities to borrow capital for water, wastewater investments for the public corporation. And in discussions that we've had with the province and the Ministry of Infrastructure, they've confirmed that verbally, But again, for the purposes of the report and today, I really wanted to stick with what's actually legislated and regulated rather than trying to make inferences. Some other unknowns. Financially, how will assets be transferred? Will they be transferred at all? Would the municipality still own the assets? The Act permits the transfer of assets, liabilities, employees, but does not address how the transfer will occur. How will they be valued? You know, when will it take place? And then a key thing that is enabled by the legislation currently is rate setting. So these public corporations would have the ability to set rates, and what is in the legislation is they would apply to the minister, so the province, and they would be accepted or denied. But what the criteria, process, and how that occurs is currently undefined. Another question that we had was operationally. If you think about the County of Brant, and again, currently, it's assumed that this would only apply to lower tier municipalities and upper tier municipalities. But if you think about the County of Brant, we often coordinate the replacement of our other assets, stormwater, roads, sidewalks, with the replacement of our underground infrastructure. So how would that process work? You know, if this public corporation is responsible for the operations and maintenance, long-term planning of water and wastewater services, how would you coordinate that with the municipality? And again, the recommendation in front of you is to receive as information and then to have staff monitor the regulations and report back as necessary, because there are a significant number of unknowns, and all we know today is that the legislation exists, that the province has the ability to dictate lower tier municipalities operate their water and wastewater infrastructure as part of a public corporation, but the details on how it works are unknown. So happy to answer any questions.
First of all, let's get it on the floor. Mover, Mayor Bailey, Councillor House. Questions? Councillor Miller.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to Dave. Dave, a lot of unknowns, as you said. Here's a question, maybe it's one of those unknowns. Private systems, we have at least one in Ward 4, but we don't allow anybody to put in a private system unless it's backstopped by the municipality. Do you see that down the road being backstopped by the municipality or by this new corporation?
So through the chair to Councillor Miller, it's interesting you mentioned that, because when this first came out, we did provide comment, and that was our thought in how this would operate, and we saw it as an opportunity for developers where, you know, there isn't public servicing, maybe there's nitrate issues, that this corporation could maybe own and operate that infrastructure and put that cash up to promote development, and that's what we put forward as comments, as well as a few others prior to the legislation being enacted. But again, it is unknown today whether that would be a opportunity for us.
Okay, well, we'll have to find out before, you know, we go ahead. Thanks.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions, Dave. Right now, for water, we are personally responsible as councillors. Is there any commentary in the bill around that?
So through the chair to Councillor Bell, the only commentary towards that is that they would be bound by legislation and regulations. Again, it's another question we had is how would the Safe Drinking Water Act apply to this public corporation where everyone, council, senior staff are all liable for negligence? And, you know, to your point, the reason that act exists is to prevent another Walkerton. So again, it's another question and unknown we have is how would that process work?
Yeah. Final question. In your report, you used the term dividends comes in, which kind of points you towards the concern that I would have. The bigger concern is that moving water and wastewater management to private hands. Anybody that follows the story of water in the UK will know that the pendulum has swung completely as it moved from public hands to private hands, from service delivery to profit maximisation. And there are many parts of the UK now that are suffering because there is insufficient water. The water quality has dropped, you know, it's really, really very poor. I think service levels have failed. So it's a slippery slope that we're on, potentially. We're right at the very top of the slope, but I hope, and I think AMO have recognized that as one of the concerns. It's a long way from when we have to deal with it, but it is something that when you see the term dividend coming in, you think, you know, what will the private shareholder want from this? And I know what he'll want. It's not service level, it's how do I get the biggest return for my investment?
If I may, I know there wasn't a question. So through the chair to Councillor Bell, I just want to be clear for everyone in the public, anyone that may pick up on this, that the public corporation means that it will be majority publicly owned, but to what level private investment to receive dividends, as you mentioned, is unknown at this point.
Any other questions from committee? Okay, just one comment and then a question that I have is, you know, I didn't count them, but many times through your report there was unknown, unknown, unknown. So I'd like to put that to one of the statements in the motion here, in the final one, and report, so it states that the council received this report for information and directs staff to monitor the proposed and enacted provincial regulations made under Bill 60 related to water and wastewater public corporations and report back to council. It's written here as appropriate. What I'm gonna ask here, because of the unknowns, and it might be just, you know, no change, but this, I have a feeling this is gonna start moving fairly quickly. So could we say, you know, even if it was quarterly or something like that, or monthly, I don't know if things will change in a month, but even quarterly rather than as appropriate, just so, you know, we understand as council, you know, there's been no movement on it or just what's going on. Again, I don't wanna, it's not something we have to know every week, but I'm just thinking, I don't like the as appropriate, not to say that you guys wouldn't, you know, if something big comes along, let us know, but this is a very important subject for all of us here, and I think we need to keep in tune with what's going on just a little bit more than appropriate. Not sure. Thoughts on that?
Through the chair to yourself, I guess, I would be amenable to that for sure. I think that's reasonable, and it could be as easy as a Friday file saying there's no update.
Perfect. Yep, just something. And as I say, I'm not saying that you wouldn't let us know if something big comes along, but I think something as important as this, we need to be on top of it as to whether there's nothing changing or this is coming down the pipes or that sort of thing. So I appreciate that. Okay, so we've got it on the floor and it is moved. No more questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Section 9, committee reports. Brand Heritage, mover. Councillor Howes, Councillor McAlpine. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so other business. We got a notice of motion by Councillor Oakley. He's not here, but a comprehensive review of the County of Brant's procedure bylaw. I guess we'll just have to, that's the notice of motion, so we'll have to wait and see what comes back on that. Okay, so other business, we had Councillor Chambers. Go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman, perhaps to the General Manager of Public Works and his supporting cast. It's been common practice over the years for road maintenance. Some of the asphalt roads the shoulders are padded as a maintenance tool. And I'm noticing this year on some of the roads, one of the best examples of what I'm explaining is the Middletown Line Road north or south of Highway 53. Some of the padding is deteriorating to the point where it's potholed and a lot of it is disappearing and it's becoming quite rough. And I'm just wondering, it would be, if it's one or two spots, people go out and patch them, but if it's miles of this kind of stuff, what actually do we do in those situations to prevent and to remedy the breakup of the padding along the shoulders, if you understand what I'm talking about.
So through the chair to Councillor Chambers, I do understand what you're referring to. Just for my information, Middletown Line Road would have had that padding on the shoulder installed as an asset management activity. Is that correct? Okay. So that's a mechanism that we use to, generally, that is done before a road gets replaced. So to answer your question, when that starts to deteriorate, it's generally a good indication that that road needs to be done. I'll use the term properly, but a full asphalt replacement for that road.
In the interim between the full asphalt replacement, I know I don't think that road is budgeted for full asphalt replacement, but it is almost getting to the point where it is undrivable with regard to the potholes and the deterioration, and it's actually quite dangerous in some spots. And it would be, I think, unproductive to send guys out there to shovels to patch it, but I'm concerned that we haven't budgeted for asphalt replacement, but at the same time, we're going to have to do something, and I'm just wondering what can be done. So I'll leave that with you, I guess, and some of the other councillors in other parts of the county may notice the same thing that I'm talking about, and I've noticed it elsewhere. And it's not going to get better, it's going to get worse, and I'm not sure what we can do about that, but I'll leave that with you.
Okay.
Greg, want to comment on that?
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, this season has been very different, and we're seeing some different things. I don't think anyone would have predicted the roads would have failed to the point that they are now. We still have, traveling around, we still have fairly good roads, but I do agree, we've been touring roads and we're seeing roads fail that we did not expect. But they're all failing in different ways. Some of them are, I call it delaminating, like what you've talked about when we've padded, some of that padding's coming apart. We've had like deep frost boils show up. So we have our shave and pave program. So we've updated that list. So we're gonna do some shave and pave repairs, short spaces, locations to help mitigate some of that. We're gonna do some dig outs. We're gonna remove some of those frost boils and we're gonna re-asphalt them. We're gonna look at padding. We're gonna look at some of the spots we might be able to re-pad well as a short-term gap to hold things together till we can, the program needs more money. And I think what you're gonna see in the future, we're gonna have to catch up. And something like this year might trigger some added roads in future budgets. But when we were all preparing budgets last May, we did not see this winter coming. So, but we do have a plan and we are working, roads is working very closely with infrastructure, and some of the stuff that's beyond what we do in road maintenance, they're trying to help us assist. So we're not gonna get them all, but we're gonna get a good percentage. Hopefully that helps.
And I appreciate that. It is concerning, and my major concern is that there are no budgeted dollars to do this kind of stuff. And this year is, if you drive around at this time of year, it always looks worse than it is, mind you, but there are some deteriorated roads that we probably didn't anticipate, which brings me to the next question, and that is, you'll recall in the budget when we talked about the village streets in the village of Scotland and the village of Burford, which were delayed because of the studies going on for drainage activities and servicing, stuff like that. And it was said that we want to know what's going on before we do a lot of work on these streets. But if you drive down Dufferin Street in Burford, it is almost gone now. And it's deteriorated to the point where something needs to be done now. And I'm just wondering what we have in the budget to do things like that, that perhaps we didn't anticipate the deterioration to the extent that they have deteriorated this winter. Because those streets, if they have to go another year and another winter before anything is done, then it's going to be, drive down Dufferin Street and you'll see what I'm talking about. You want to comment on that?
Through the chair, we actually did drive Dufferin. I drove it with Jason DeMonk, our road operations manager, Kevin Seitz, the area soup, and then I met Mark Eby on site. So they are aware, and they're actually gone back and they're gonna look at the program to see if we can squeeze some more dollars out of the program or shift something around. Dufferin was one of the streets, and there's been a few others that weren't on the radar that I asked Mark Eby and his group to take a look at. So that has definitely been looked at and driven by myself as well as Mark Eby.
I think I saw you drive down that road, as a matter of fact. And the other thing is, this year, I think you're gonna notice in what we haven't noticed in several years is some of the unsurfaced roads, some of the gravel roads, the frost heaves and the deterioration of those roads are gonna be very evident in the next couple of weeks. And with regard to half-load season, we've been very lucky in the last few years in that we really have had good roads during that time period, but this year it's going to be a different story. So hopefully the MTO and the powers that be can enforce the half-load restrictions to save some of the roads that are, again, deteriorating badly, more so because of the weather this year than they have in the past. But I'm glad to see, and I knew before I asked the questions that the road department and the public works were on top of this, but hopefully there's enough money in the budget that they can do what needs to be done. If not, we're going to have to do some adjusting.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Miller, you had something on roads as well?
Yeah, a couple things, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I'm glad Greg pointed out everybody is aware that the winter was extremely hard on the roads. Gravel roads are no exception. But I was wondering, Greg, can you remind us when the grading season starts? Is it a certain date or is it weather dependent?
So through the chair, grading season can mean a couple different things. We always try to grade to keep the roads in good shape when we can. This year's been very hard because we think we're gonna get a couple days where we can get the graders out, and then all of a sudden it's frozen. Like, we had great weather yesterday, but the roads were wet. We thought we'd give them a day to dry out, and then it drops down to minus 10, 15 last night, so they're all frozen. Generally, grading season is when we go out to do our graveling, which is like very late April, early May, when the half-load season's coming off. We're able to truck in all the gravel, and then we can put the calcium treatment on it, and then that keeps all the gravel in place and no dust and dust complaints. So we try to do that all in one swoop. But understanding the conditions of the roads this year with the freezing and thaw, rain, plus 22, minus 22, we do recognize that there are some potholes and some gravel that are in tough shape. So I have spoken specifically with Kevin Seitz within the last few days. We are going to go out when we get nicer days and start touching up some of these roads with the gravel, and which is ahead of the season. So we are aware, and we are adjusting our regular maintenance activities and schedule to make it proportionate to what happened this year. So we are on top of it. So to answer your question, graveling season will probably be late April, early May, when the residents have traditionally seen it, but you are going to see some repairs and some surface grading. Anytime when the weather warms up, we're gonna get at it and start cleaning some things up.
Okay, thank you, Greg, and I will send this clip to a couple people. And then my second question, Mr. Chair, a week ago Friday, they had the MP's breakfast coming back, closer to around 11 a.m. hour. I seen a wall of traffic heading east. I knew right away the 403 was shut down because I've seen that. It was the third time I've seen it in the last 8 months. And people living along, I don't want to say it's a detour route, but the route that a lot of the vehicles take, I guess are kind of surprised that they're taking the route that they're taking. So my question to staff is there a designated route when the 403 is shut down, which seems to be more and more these days? And if there is a designated route, how do we kind of ensure that people are taking that route?
So through the chair, yes, there is. It's called an EDR, Emergency Detour Route, and it is signed within the county. The MTO, actually, we requested new signs through the MTO a couple years ago. They're out, you'll see them. They're in your area, you'll see them along 53 and 25. They're yellow and blue and black, I believe, and they say EDR on them. The problem is that you have to look and follow them. So I'm going to talk about 2 detours ago. We had the 403 closed and people were using Bethel Road. Okay, so once I became aware of that, we tried to fix it, but I wasn't getting the notifications about the 403. It was more of observations and people calling in. The detour road closure that happened last week on the 403 up at Muir Road, we found people were cutting down and taking concession 4 across to 25. I was able to become aware of that very quickly, so we sent staff out to actually close Muir Road and say local traffic only. We went down to West Quarter, posted local traffic only, which forced the vehicles down to 25 so that they could actually use the EDR. I'm going to, I've already met with the OPP. I have a follow-up meeting with the OPP that we get enforcement. Once they have their emergency or the road closure done on the 403, we need to get them on our secondary roads so that when transports are there, they start handing out tickets because they're not supposed to be on there and they know that, especially during the half-load season. So we don't have any enforcement capabilities. We can't even force a truck to keep going straight. We have to suggest to them to keep going straight. And that's what we're trying to get ahead of. And then if the MTO gives us enough notification, which they used to call me immediately, and we were able to get it out to communications, they stopped that practice. They've tried to do it, reinstate it again. So this most recent one I was talking about, we found out about the closure for 2 hours after it went in place. But it was actually our plow operators that told us that things were not going as planned, so we were able to shift things around. So from a staff standpoint, we're trying to do what we can, and the OPP are very supportive. So when they're free, I'm hoping to get some enforcement action.
Just to follow up, so we do have EDRs, they're signed, they should be following it, they don't always, and I think part of the problem, and Dave alluded to it too, I think, people rely on the GPS, right? And that's taking them the shortest way or something like that. So a road is a road, a public road, people can drive up, but I guess what was frustrating about this latest incident was, yeah, the half-load limit, and some of those roads were getting, I think they were taking a lot of abuse, you know, with the trucks going through, and I would prefer if they followed the EDR. I don't want to see them get a traffic ticket because they're having a bad day and they got to get off, but yeah, it would be good if they followed it, and I don't know if you guys can follow up with Google Maps or whatnot, but that might be another.
Through the chair, we can. We can also post EDRs on our municipal 511 map for the public. We can put a layer in there. And then what I can do addition is I can work with Melissa and Susie, and maybe we can just do like a little local communications thing. The only problem is it's not.
People outside.
It's people going through the county, not usually generally living within the county.
Okay. Thank you, Greg, and I appreciate that. And yeah, as long as you're aware, it's when you don't know and you find out 2 hours later, that's a little frustrating to hear too, but do what you can. Thank you.
Yeah, just on something you said there, Councilmember, with GPS, you're right. People put in their GPS and that's the way they go. That's how I get transport trucks down Mile Hill, because the GPS tells them to go there. And that kind of a little segue into, you know, the winter and the roads and stuff like that. It's done a lot of, I won't say harm or damage, but it's noticeable, the impact that this winter has had. It's a pro or con depending on how you look at it, but partway up Mile Hill, nature has, this winter has given us a natural speed enforcement going up Mile Hill, because it's kind of a hole, a hump, or I'm not quite sure what it is, but it definitely slows people down, and I find it quite humorous. I've seen a couple people hit that at a speed and the whole car does one of these, so I guess it's good and bad, right? But anyway, by the sounds of it, is duly noted by staff on roads, and they're doing what they can, and we appreciate that, and thank you. Anybody else for other business? Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Sorry to keep on roads. Sorry, Greg. I think Friday night, Susie put out a notice that the 403, as it intersects with West Acres, was going to be closed for westbound traffic.
And eastbound.
Then we find out actually it's westbound and eastbound on a rotating basis. I couldn't even begin to tell my residents what that meant. And I know it's not your fault, Greg, and I know it's not Susie's fault, but my goodness, it must be complicated, because when on Monday morning people were going down Rest Acres thinking, yeah, I can get on the road going eastbound, that's okay. When they got there, they couldn't. So have we got a problem in communication with MTO on these issues? And can we improve it?
Through the chair, I thought we were. I don't know if everyone remembers last year, they closed many ramps all the way through the corridor. And it was, some people were having to drive 25, 30 kilometers out of their way to get to their destination. And we weren't getting notification, but we were getting the calls. And so I'd asked for better communication, and then I think they sent it to us 5 o'clock or 8 o'clock on Friday night. So Susie and I were trying, and it was very confusing, the notice that they sent us. So, because they were, the way it read was all ramps were closed. And then I asked Susie to reach out to the communications person there to get more detail. They gave her the ramps, but then they turned out to be the wrong ramps that they gave Susie. So it's not, we are following up. I do meet with the director of the MTO once quarterly. So I'm going to see if I can escalate that. I will make sure that we get better communication. And we tried to reach out to several people during this, and we weren't able to get the right person. And that's even with having their notice. So I know it was very rough for everyone, but Susie and I were trying to work through it on a weekend, and we couldn't get it done.
Okay. Councilor Chambers?
Could I just, while Greg is at the podium, just pass on a word of thank you on behalf of a ratepayer, who actually is my daughter, thanking the road crew that replaced her mailbox after your other road crew took it down. She was very, very impressed with the speed on which it was done, and more so by the courteousness of the people that were there doing it. And she made that comment to me. So pass that on to your mailbox crew, that they were very, very nice to my daughter, and she was very, very thankful for what they did.
Good to know.
And pass on to the guy that took it out, not to do it again.
Let's just keep that on the positive, eh? Okay, so there's no other business here, so we are going to go in camera. Can I get a motion to go in camera? Councillor Howes, Councillor Kyle. We're going to take a 2-minute break. Okay, we are back in open session. As far as the agenda is concerned, I do not see anything else on the agenda. So the next meeting will be Tuesday, April the 21st, 2026 at 9 a.m. And Councillor Howes, as you alluded to, apparently when you're chair, you go a little quicker. I'm just giving you forewarning that I will be away, so you will be chair for the meeting on April the 21st. So I'll be sure to look at the camera when we're done, so.
Be done by 10 o'clock.
With that, I thank everybody for their time. Have a great day. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Coleman.